and welcome to the Ruth MacFit Podcast, where we're redefining what it means to feel great in midlife. My name is Ruth, and I am coach and creator of the No Crap Cake Method, a simple, no-nonsense approach to fat loss, fitness, and feeling your best without giving up everything you love. A quick note here as well, we have started our No Crap Summer Challenge. It's all about building those habits that feel sustainable, that can actually keep you going over the summer. No extremes, just flexible routines that fit with your life. Because summer is busy and at some points you'll be able to focus on more than others. And right now you can get 20% off your first month of membership. To join, you can find all of the information in the show notes. And of course, I'd absolutely love to have you with us. So if you're ready to ditch your all or nothing mindset, feel stronger in your 40s and beyond, and say no to all the crap that drains you, then you are absolutely in the right place. Let's go. Welcome back. Very happy to be here with you today. It is pretty warm in my office right now, so I am here trying not to melt while I'm talking to you. I also had something very exciting delivered this week. We had the t-shirt deliveries and merch deliveries come through for No Crap Cake. So if you're not watching, apologies, but I am going to show what I'm currently wearing. I'm wearing one of the tanks, and look, it says No Crap Cake Society on the front, and then if I turn around, it's got the No Crap Cake Society, and then because life's too short for crap cake. Because isn't it just? That is a motto I will stand by. Anyway, without further ado, I guess you want to know what it is I'm here to chat to you about today. And it's something that really can make fat loss feel much, much easier. And I'm not talking about tracking every single macro so that you can lose weight or spending the whole of your Sunday prepping food. But I am talking about prepping. Oh, maybe I can hear you rolling your eyes at me and being like, here we go, another coach telling us to prep all our meals in advance. That is not what I'm asking you to do. I wouldn't want to do that. I'm not going to expect you to do that too. I'm not talking about influencer style prepping in different coloured pots and having special jars for things. No. You can think about this as prep for the rest of us. You know, the tired, the busy, the I can't be bothered to prep. That's what I'm going to be talking about today. And the thing is, prepping in this way really can be an absolute game changer. And I know there'll be a lot of you that might be thinking, yeah, great, I understand, I would love to have time to prep, but it just feels like more work and something you should be doing, but you don't have the time for. And I know that because I used to think that way too. But once you understand what it can do for you, suddenly it feels a lot more appealing. And the thing about fat loss is it feels so much easier when we feel calmer. So that is always going to be my priority. So prepping ahead doesn't need to be about being perfect. It's more about protecting your future self from having to make one more decision. And here I'm talking one more decision when your brain is already fried. And you'll have heard me perhaps talk in previous podcasts about decision fatigue, which is, you know, when we're making so many decisions throughout the day, each one drains a little bit more of our mental energy. And then when we're running on low, which I think we can agree in midlife we quite often are, our brain then defaults to the easiest, most comforting choice, the thing that we've practiced over and over again in the past that was maybe helpful once upon a time, but isn't serving us so much now. And the thing is, I have a lot of women that will say to me that they have no willpower, and I don't believe it's willpower. I think it's more down to cognitive overload. It's getting to 6 p.m. when your brain is done and then handing it over to autopilot, and then those old habits are going to be easier to kick in than any new ones you're trying to create. And that means we might be reaching for wine, crisps, something beige from the freezer, but it's not a willpower problem. It's more a mental overload problem. And there's so many times also where I'll have people saying, I know exactly what to do, so why is it I get to the freezer at the end of the day, I've got a choice of a healthy meal, but I choose the less healthy option? Why is that? And that is decision fatigue talking there. But the good news is that even just one or two small decisions made earlier in the day or early in the week, they can make a massive, massive difference. So firstly, I want to make one thing clear, and that is that prepping does not need to mean that you're spending your whole day on a Sunday prepping ahead 12 meals in pretty plastic tubs. I wouldn't want you to do that. Don't do that, because that is not fun, that's not sustainable, that isn't going to allow you to live the rest of your life as well. That becomes all about this one goal of fat loss. But here's what it can look like when we're prepping ahead. And by prepping, I'm going to say prepping and planning ahead. It might be that you're just thinking about your next meal. That would be step one. That's it. You don't have to think about the whole week if that doesn't work for you. It doesn't need to be a rigid plan. You might just be deciding what's for dinner ahead of time, or what you're having for breakfast the following day. But that one decision will feel like a gift when you're tired later. I had a client who started just committing to having breakfast instead of grabbing a biscuit in the morning. Now that might sound strange, but she was grabbing a biscuit for a reason. And it's one that I think a lot of you could probably relate to. So she was getting up in the morning and making her son breakfast, and then making sure that her husband had a decent breakfast. She was trying to be really helpful to them, and she'd pick at little bits while she was doing that. And then when it came to having some food herself, because she picked, she was like, oh, I think I'm okay. And then she wouldn't eat that. And then she'd have some biscuits. So we made it a priority that she would take time to have breakfast herself. And when I say breakfast, we're talking a nutrient-dense breakfast. And within 2 weeks, she actually said that she felt calmer, she had fewer cravings, and she was losing weight. And that was because she just wasn't constantly reacting to hunger and low energy. She was giving herself time to be satiated by those meals. Another thing that can be really helpful with prepping or planning ahead is having those go-to foods. I find it quite helpful to have a list. You can either keep it on your fridge. We've got a whiteboard on our fridge where we've got these written down, but you also might have a notes section in your phone. But there's probably meals that you have again and again on repeat. I know in our house we have certain evening meals that we're eating often. We've got an adaptation of a Thai green curry that just comes out again and again, that we change and we swap and we do different things. We've got bolognese that we might have. We've got tray bakes. What else? Then actually, I'm proving my own point here. We have these things and we have them often, but if our brain is feeling a bit full and we're thinking of other things, even those meals that we have all the time, we struggle to remember what they are. So having them written down so that when you're thinking about your shopping list, or when you're thinking about what you're going to eat in the evenings and you want something quick and easy, you have your go-tos. It might be that you have 4 or 5 written down for each meal that you can just go to when you are lacking any inspiration. And it is okay to have similar things fairly often as well. And like I said, this is very helpful for forming the basis for your shopping list, because you know that if you've got the ingredients, I definitely use this, making sure that we've got chicken in the freezer, making sure that we've got some other bits and pieces, which I'm going to go on to in a minute. But that list of ingredients, that idea of what you're going to eat, that's going to make food decisions feel much easier and make it far more likely that you're going to stay on track. So I'm not going to be someone who is spending the whole of my Sunday, like I said, in the kitchen prepping food. But I do tend to commit to, as a minimum, prepping one thing on a Sunday, and that is a source of protein. So for me, that tends to be chicken that I prep, and it might be that I'm just putting some seasoning on some chicken and frying that up. It might be that I'm doing a loaf pan chicken, where I'm doing some skinless boneless chicken thighs and cooking those up. It might be that I'm putting some chicken in an air fryer. The point is that I'm mainly cooking chicken. But if you're vegetarian, you might be doing eggs or veggie sausages. You might have a different sort of protein that you want to prep. But prepping some protein gives me so many more options for the rest of the week, particularly for my lunches. It gives me the options of adding it to a quick salad, having a wrap, a pita, a stir fry, popping it in with some rice and some veg. Even on its own, just a nibble on something when I'm really, really hungry and I want something that's a bit better than just having another piece of bread and butter, for example. And for a lot of us, this can just be the missing piece, because research has shown that diets higher in protein are going to help with satiety and muscle maintenance during fat loss. And this is particularly important for a couple of reasons. Firstly, if you're in a calorie deficit, you can lose muscle mass. It's why you don't want to go for too much of an extreme deficit, and why people who are taking things like Ozempic and Mounjaro need to be particularly careful of this. Is you're going to lose muscle mass when you are restricting heavily in calories. So we want to counteract that by making sure that we're getting enough protein in our diet, and obviously doing some strength training as well. We also tend to lose muscle mass when we get to this midlife sort of stage. You can build muscle too, as well. So I don't want you to feel like it's the end of the road. No, you can absolutely do stuff to help it, but it does mean that those little things like eating enough protein and moving your body in a way that is going to work your muscles is going to become more important. So we want to include that. But alongside that protein, you don't want to just eat it on its own all the time, because otherwise you're going to be missing so many other nutrients that you want to be having. And we want to make that lunch really easy to put together. So that might be having some other things alongside it. I find having some frozen veg in the freezer really useful. Here it could be kind of mixed veg, it could be broccoli, it could be edamame beans, you can get frozen ones of those. Frozen onions, chopped onions. Honestly, I used to think, honestly, I can chop an onion. I can, but if you've got a frozen bag of onion and you are really tired, that is game changing, because the thought of peeling and chopping an onion can be enough to not even want to cook yourself something from scratch. So frozen onions are a great one to have in the freezer. Then you could get things like tins of beans or pulses. You can have carby options like microwave rice or pittas. Again, they can go in the freezer, and then also some salad options. But you've got those then to add to that protein option, and that's already creating a really delicious meal. And then on top of that, having in your house some of your favourite sauces or dressings. So for me, I like to have sriracha in. Love some sriracha. And I also like to have some balsamic glaze in. So I'll often put balsamic glaze on my salads. I'll have Cajun seasoning that I'll often put on my chicken. And then I do actually like adding a little bit of feta to my salad as well. But there we go. Herbs, spices, sauces, dressings. You know, if you can have those things in, great. But things like sriracha and balsamic glaze, they keep for a really long time and make meals taste just that little bit tastier. And the best bit about all of this is you can pull together a meal in less than 10 minutes, even on a super busy day. But I don't feel like it would be right for me to chat about prepping ahead and only talk about food, because it doesn't just apply to food. You can actually prep for your movement too. And I don't mean by scheduling in an hour for you to do your workout. I mean by making it easier to show up, but also so that you know what you're doing ahead of time. I think one of the barriers to exercising that a lot of people can have is not knowing what their workout's going to look like. So you can easily assign the time. I'm going to do a workout at 10 o'clock on Wednesday, and then it comes round, and then you're like, right, okay, which workout am I going to do? And then you try and find a workout, and that takes a bit of time. And then you realise you need equipment that you don't know where it is, and that takes a bit of time. And then before you know it, you've hardly got any time for workout, and you think, what's the point? So being able to plan ahead, choose your workout, make sure that you've got no surprises. Even better if you've got workouts that are written for you in an app, like the No Crap Cake method, of course, but having the workouts there so you know what you're going to do. And then also there's those barriers to exercise that we can have. And I think prepping it as part of your routine can be useful. I use my sister as an example of this because she was the first person that I started giving exceptionally short workouts to. And that was many years ago. She didn't want to do traditional workouts. She had been recovering from a bad back. She had a fat loss goal. So I gave her 2-3 move routines to do while her kettle boiled. Now, I have traditionally called these like daily 1 and daily 2, but I'm going to change that. I'm going to call them the pajama workouts, because that is what they are. They're workouts that can be done in your PJs, and they can take 5 to 10 minutes. But the main thing is that she got stronger. Her back pain got better. She started walking more because she had more energy. She was just feeling better. There was nothing fancy for it here, but it did work because it was easy for her to keep doing. And that's the bit we often forget, is consistency over time is going to beat going hard for just a short bit of time. And obviously movement and nutrition do absolutely come into your fat loss goal. Movement makes you feel good. It helps you preserve your muscle mass and so on. And nutrition is obviously important as well. But as I've said many times, fat loss feels so much easier when you feel calmer. So we want to create that calm. We want to make it easier. There is cortisol and it gets a bad rap, and I definitely don't want to make it seem like a bad thing because it's very important. But when it's chronically elevated, as I've mentioned in previous podcasts, that is where it can become a problem. And often people with chronically elevated cortisol don't even know that they're at that point anymore. But it can lead to more cravings, particularly for sugary, high-calorie foods, and then contribute to storing a bit more fat around our abdomen. So the more calm and in control we feel, the easier it will be to stay aligned with our goals. And it's not because we're trying harder and we're spending hours prepping because we feel like we have to. It's actually because our body and our brain are doing it in a way that works for us. There was actually a study that was published that showed that people who made intentional choices with their food and practiced basic meal planning, that they reported better quality and weight outcomes. And it wasn't because they were being really strict and rigid, but it was because they were creating this structure, not adding extra pressure, just making things feel easier. And I think it would be remiss of me to talk about mentally prepping and planning ahead without mentioning my favourite prep tool, and that is the no crap cake condition. If I'm going to be eating a piece of cake, I want it to be amazing. I want to be able to sit down and enjoy every bite, and that doesn't have to just apply to cake, but think of those more indulgent foods and drinks that you might be having. And this one mindset shift has made such a big difference to so many women, and for me it definitely helped me stop picking at snacks around the day that I didn't even like and I wasn't even registering. It was about making choices instead of reactions, and I think you can prep for that. You know, what is going to feel great this week? What's coming up that I really want to enjoy? And it feels so much better when we make it a choice rather than a reaction. And I think with the kids' holidays happening at the moment, a lot of parents having things that feel a little bit out of control, knowing what's coming up with the kids, ask yourself, am I going to be wanting to have a piece of cake out then? Would I rather, on this day that I'm at home a little bit more, pick at the crap around the house, or shall I actually go to that lovely bakery and sit and have a cake or an ice cream with the kids? You know, having something to look forward to can be underestimated. I love my Belgian bun that is normally on a Saturday. I'm actually going to let you into a secret. I actually had my Belgian bun today. I sat down with my cup of tea and I had it. And I had it because I'm actually doing this long running event tomorrow, which is another story that I could go into. I booked it on a whim, but it's a long event, and actually we need to make sure I get enough calories today, but also they will not be selling my Belgian bun there, so I've sat down and enjoyed that today. But eating a cake sitting at a table with a cup of tea is definitely going to beat eating even that same cake, walking along picking at it. I think when I used to pick at cakes and take slithers or eat it rushing back to the car, I think that was almost like the guilt kicking in, when you can't actually look and register and enjoy it, when you're rushing it down because you have that scarcity mindset over it. So if you are finding yourself doing that, see if you can just set a condition that you'll go, I can have this, but I'm going to have it at a time where I can sit and enjoy it. Even if that means it's sitting on there. I was actually in the gym the other day, and Nick, who owns the gym, his wife had brought him in this shortbread biscuit, and it was quite a big one. It had fruit in it. It looked really lovely. Traditionally, he probably would have been somebody that would have just picked at it because he was a bit hungry and he's working with clients. But he was like, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to enjoy that in a bit. And that's what it is. You know, even if it is the things and we can go, yeah, it is incredible cake, does it still count as being incredible if we haven't taken time to enjoy it? So that's a little thought there to leave you with. But remember also that you're not failing if you've been feeling a bit overwhelmed. It's just that your brain is tired. It's got so much to think about. And prepping ahead, even just a little bit, is like giving your future self a helping hand. It's not about being perfect. It's about reducing that friction, about giving yourself space to feel your best, to thrive, I guess you could say, and not just survive. And I've spoken about the minimums you might well do to help you with prepping. You can push for more. You know, I do prep my protein, but I also do normally prep in some overnight oats for the first 4 days of the week as well. But I think having that protein as my minimum makes such a difference. It really does. But it's just knowing what's happening, knowing what's for dinner. Prep can definitely be a secret weapon, even for the lazy ones, especially for the busy ones. So as always, if this episode has resonated with you, if you've kind of felt yourself going, oh yeah, I could do with this, then I would love it if you could comment, share, review, rate, all of those things that you can do on Spotify. And let me know on Instagram. You can find me at Ruth MacFit. And if you're ready to stop starting over again and again and you'd like a little support, then come and join us in the No Crap Cake method. There is no endless Sunday prep required. You can find details of membership levels at www.ruthmacfit.com. Until next time, I'll speak to you very soon. Goodbye.